Recording there. Record here. See if this works. All right, I'm here with Jordan Williams. Super excited to host Jordan on Can't Knock This. Little history of Jordan Williams. He was like my idol at Vivint. I looked up to him. I actually pulled this out just to show everybody. This is legitimately why I'm interviewing Jordan Williams. His name is on there more than anyone else. Top rep at Vivint 3 years in a row. Currently, he's the regional vice president of sales at Vivint Solar. And his first 100 days at Vivint Solar, he's like, I'm going to switch from alarms where I'm the best of the best, and I'm going to go to solar, and I'm going to prove that I can do both. And his first 100 days, he did 100 installs. His first quarter, he had 86 installs, which I don't think's ever been done in solar. I've never heard of anybody even coming close to that. So that is why we're hosting Jordan Williams on Can't Knock This. So let's give it up for Jordan. So tell us a little bit about what makes you different.
What makes me different? I think what makes me different, I don't know if I'm much different. I think I do simple little things just over and over a lot, and people think it's different, but it's actually not too crazy.
Yeah, it's just the compound effect, right?
Right.
So what are the little things you do over and over again?
So, if you've ever read the book Greatest Salesman in the World, Og Mandino talks about this principle of becoming a slave to good habits. That's something I've always believed in and tried to do. As a matter of fact, when I first read that book, it resonated with me because I'd always kind of thought that, but the way that he words it just made a lot of sense to me. So I try to get to the point where it's not really a decision, you just kind of do it. And you take the emotion of the decision and stuff. So,
cool.
That's I try to do as many things like that as possible.
So how do you take the emotion out of stuff? Like what's your trick on that?
So I take the decision out. I always try to set up a system and let a bunch of people know about it so that I'm kind of stuck in that system and can't really decide not to do it. For example, when I was doing alarms, I set up a system. The first year I wanted to do 300. I set up a system where if I didn't do 3 in a day, I'd go out and knock the next morning. And I told everyone in the office that if I ever didn't do 3, that I wasn't going to be around the next day in the morning time. And so it just kind of, it held me accountable to it, but it took the decision. I couldn't really say, hey, I'm good. I'm ahead of pace, so I don't really want to do that tomorrow. I kind of just had to do it. I was forced to do it, essentially. But it made it so I couldn't necessarily make a decision on it. I just would do it.
I like that. So what would you see as your greatest success since you've been in door-to-door? I guess what was your first year in door-to-door?
My first year was 2006. I was in Virginia selling security for APX alarm. Greatest success, man. That's a tough one. Honestly, for me, it was never about, I was able along the way to have some success doing it, but it was never really about being top rep or whatever. I had some goals, and as long as I hit my goals, I was totally cool with whatever else came. And every year I feel like I'd have somebody come and say, hey, Jordan, I'm coming for you or whatever, which I never really tried to get too caught up in it. It was, I had some goals, and if I hit them, that's a success. If somebody else goes out and beats me, sweet, I lost, whatever. It was never about being top guy. It was more about my individual goal.
Yeah. So if you had to pinpoint one thing though, that you felt like, man, this was my greatest achievement since I've done it since 2006, what would you say you would have to credit that to?
What I would credit it to, or what would it be?
Or what would it be, and then what would you credit to?
I guess so. Depending on how you look at it, at Vivint, 6 of the 9 years I was there, I was top rep either in total installs or points, however they did it, and that actually meant something to me. One of the years, my first year, I wasn't. I was a rookie. I was top rookie, but I wasn't the top rep. And then one year, my little boy had heart surgery. So that year, I wasn't there for the whole summer. I was there for half of it. And then my last year there, I think it was you. I think you just beat me out. So I was
Felt good.
dethroned.
Felt good. No, but
Yeah.
pretty much every year possible, you were the number one guy. That's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, so I mean, it meant something more because of the work that was put in to do it. Like, it's just a lot of those things that people don't want to do, and I pride myself on being willing and able to do things that other people aren't willing or able to do. So I mean, that's probably the greatest accomplishment. Just that type stuff. Same thing when it came to solar. I wanted to make a splash. I didn't necessarily want to be. I didn't want to be Jordan from, home automation security side. I want to be Jordan at solar. So I kind of had to, create a brand here, I guess.
Yeah, it's almost like you had to change your name. And how easy? How many security guys do you feel like have left security and went into solar, thinking like, oh, I just don't want to knock, or I don't want to like move, or I want to do it because I, I feel like that's a common mindset that people have.
Oh, it's super common. I think that was one of the things when I came over here. I wanted to make sure that people understood. Like, I wasn't tired. I wasn't, you know, washed up. I wasn't, burned out, or I don't think that's a real thing. But I came over. I wanted to make sure that that was understood. I mean, I still knock. I had 13 installs last quarter, 13 the quarter before. I still knock, sell, install. Try to stay on it. Try to stay sharp.
And how many guys do you manage?
Ooh, in so all of the West, there are probably 350. I kind of have more jurisdiction accountability rulership over NorCal, which there are 100 to 110.
That's crazy. And still threw in 13 installs last quarter. That's awesome.
Yeah, try to find the time to do it.
So what was going through your head? Because I remember, so I went 2014 top rep, but at that point it was like, I made it, I did it, I don't even care to be number one. How did you maintain a mentality of like, I did that, been there, done that, to where you kept doing it? Like, see what I
So
mean?
I think true success or something that's impressive is something that can be repeated. I think you see, like I said earlier, as a lot of people would come and talk to me, and I'd get a lot of Facebook messages or text messages or random, shout out saying, Jordan, I'm coming for you or whatever. But I think you see a lot of one hit wonders in our industry. They come and have a big year because it's a good area, or, whatever the reason. Something I've always prided myself on is being able to do consistent, steady amount of volume wherever I am. I've been, for the summer, when I was going out for the summers, I was at a different location every summer. So I always pride myself on being able to have the same amount of success in other places. So I
So,
mean, again, it's more just that I wasn't necessarily going for the top spot. I wanted to hit my goals, and I had a system to do it. And as long as I stuck with the system, that stuff kind of took care of itself.
yeah. So what, yeah, I mean, there's something to be said that like you could sell anywhere. Like it's not like, for me, I'll be honest, I love the small towns, Texas, like I have my niche, the nice stuff, but it sounds like you kind of made it to where you could just sell, it doesn't matter. How did you move into like that
So
mindset?
I don't know if it was ever a mindset. Maybe, yeah, I guess actually it probably was a mindset. Um, I just think everywhere is different. I don't think one place is good or bad or better than the other. I just think it's different. And I think the way you sell different people or different scenarios is different. And I think as long as you understand sales, you'll understand how to sell, the small town Texas, whatever, like you prefer, like the middle class, Minnesota neighborhood, whatever it is. I just think, everything's numbers, and sales is basically an equation. And as long as you're following the equation and doing it right, it's going to equal sales.
So, what would you tell a manager that's dealing with a rep that is maybe like always complaining about area, always switching it up, or a rep, you know what I mean? Like, what advice would you give them?
Usually when reps want to switch areas because they're not comfortable in that specific stuff, obviously, they're looking for their golden area where they can excel. I think it's more important to the manager that they teach them how to sell. I just think it's a not very trained salesperson, which we can get away with that a little bit, to be honest. You can have somebody that is excited, gung ho, wants to get out and be successful. But at the end of the day, if there's going to be any longevity in it, they have to understand sales. They have to go through the training. They have to know that equation kind of that I was referring to earlier. Not necessarily know the equation, but know how the process works, problem, solution, transition. Just, they have to know the basics of it.
So how'd you get trained? Who trained you? How'd you learn sales? How'd you get so good? Like, what'd you do? Books? What'd you do to train?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to hear a funny story. So the way that I started, I was before I started knocking at all, I was gonna play golf at BYU. Long story short.
Fun plug. He's not that good. I'm just kidding. You just tear everybody up. I hated the Vivint tournaments because you just smoke everyone. Screw you.
I was gonna go play, then I realized I wasn't that good, so I didn't. No, but so I was gonna do that, and so I was actually telling this story the other day to a couple people. But so I decided not to do it, and at the time, my dad was kind of helping me out. He was like, go do the golf thing if that's what you want to do. Go pursue it. Don't get a job. I'll help you. Just putting money in my account, a little bit here and there. And when I would get low, my dad would just put a couple $100 in my account, and which was cool. I mean, I'm super grateful for it, obviously. And it literally just one day, I had $62 in my bank account, and I was about to call my dad, and I was like, you know what? That's pretty lame. Like, I was 21 years old. Like, I'm not gonna call my dad and ask for money. So we had a neighbor at the time that made calendars. And so I was like, I'm going to call Pam and I'm going to see if I can sling some calendars. I'm going to sell calendars. I literally called her up and I said, hey, I've been doing, this is what I've been doing and I'm kind of over it. So I need to sell some calendars. Can you send me bucks? Can I just go sell them? And she was like, yeah, not only that, but I'll let you pay me after. And I was like, sweet, because I can't afford to buy the inventory right now. So
don't tell me these calendars had some hot, sexy boys on them or something.
They did.
Oh, okay, good.
I'll say it was Temple Calendars in Provo, Utah.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's good.
We had all sorts of photographers send her pictures. She'd put them together and she'd sell them to big stores, Siegel Book, and
okay,
all this stuff. I was like, let me take them to sell them. So I literally got this box. I walked out of my apartment. I think it was at King Henry at the time in Provo, Utah, and started selling calendars door to door. And what was funny, so I was making like $7 a pop. I still remember one day I made like $45 and I was pumped. Like, I thought I had stuff figured out.
You just doubled your income right there. You doubled your bank account.
Crushed it. Who needs a dad? Crushed it. But it was funny because the way that the pitch had developed, so no one really knew I was doing this. I was telling someone this the other day, but one of my kind of mottos or philosophies in life is make noise without saying a word. And so I kind of was just keeping it quiet, just between me and me. And my brother Tyler, who got me into this, kind of found out I was doing it. He was like, "You're doing what?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I need some money." He's like, "Well, you can do this, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'll go to the recruiting thing. I'll hear you out." So that's kind of how it got started. So Ty is the one that got me into it, but I kind of got myself into knocking door to door because I was figuring that out from day one. But yeah, I'm grateful for it. So Ty's the one that trained me, got me into it. I learned a lot from him and continue to learn a lot from him, obviously.
So what were some of the things you did kind of starting out to excel your learning curve? Because obviously being top rookie, that's a big accomplishment. But how'd you speed that up?
I worked a lot on it. So I did 10 preseason accounts before I went out. I had my goal. As a matter of fact, my first year, I was trying to kind of figure out my goal. I didn't know what was realistic, and so I was talking to Ty Williams, that's my brother, by the way, and Eric Mealy, who was the manager at the time. And I was like, is 150 crazy? Is that something that these guys that come out and just say, "I want to do 150," and everyone laughs like it's not going to happen. I don't want to be that guy. But I was like, "Is that doable?" And they're like, "I mean, yeah, you could do it. It's hard, but you could do it." And they said, "First thing you do is turn preseason." I was like, "Okay, well, if people that have been successful at this tell me that the first thing I need to do in order to hit that goal is to do that, I'm just going to do that." So there was never a question. I was like, "All right, I'm doing 10 because they told me that's what I needed to do." So I went out and did 10, and I worked on my pitch, and when I was driving around in my car, I'd practice my pitch, and it was uncomfortable and awkward, and then it got comfortable, and then it got to a point where it was just second nature, and then by the time it was second nature in my car, when I get to the door, it's the same thing. So it wasn't difficult to do that. It was difficult to get out of the car and start, right, just like we always feel, especially when I'm so brand new and didn't know anything, but I mean, I had practiced it and learned it and asked questions and been to every training. And, I mean, I just went through the gauntlet of training for it.
Cool. So now moving to solar, obviously it's kind of, there's probably some fear of like, man, I'm obviously a really good salesman. I know sales, I know security. I mean, what'd you do to like, I mean, 100 installs in your first 100 days. I mean, what did you find there's some commonality? It's like two different products, but what did you find the same?
Um, so same thing, really. I mean, honestly, I kind of just tried to put myself, where I started with security and just go learn it. Like, I came out here. I'm in South Bay. I came out here with Brian Rossiter, who's a good buddy of mine. And when I came out, I literally just kind of said, "Hey, man, I don't claim to know anything about this at all. I understand sales a little bit, and I think I understand the process pretty well, but I need some help with it." He actually helped me a ton, just learning solar. But the more you know about sales, the more you realize it's less about the product and more about the process, right? So the product's great, it's different, but I always tell you, it's not like, if you go and do really well with pest control or security or so, it's not like you're really good at selling pest control. You're good at selling, and you're going to be successful at what you do. So it was kind of a similar thing. I went to work. I had my hours. I set them. I didn't ever deviate from them one time ever, and that's the difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, so it's kind of that sticking to the routine more so than like being such a good sales guy.
I mean, it's the guy that's you look at the gym that's shredded. It's not like he went to the gym for 9 hours one day. He's gone to the gym for 45 minutes to an hour for 9 years. I mean, that's the difference.
It's a good analogy. So what is your process? Obviously, there's probably some similarities that stayed between alarms to solar. You keep talking about this process. How would you describe your sales process?
So I make sure I'm working the hours. That's always what I did with alarms. The way that I did it with on the security side was I'd set up little hour and 45-minute increments. I always had a goal to get 4 every day, and I would set up hour and 45-minute increments from 2 to 3:45, 3:45 to 5:30, 5:30 to 7:15, and 7:15 to 9. And I would every single hour and 45-minute increment I expected to have a sale.
Why an hour and 45 minutes versus 2 hours or an hour and a half?
Divided up the time equally. That's all it was.
Okay.
So I did, the 2 to 9 by 4, and that's what made sense.
Okay.
It made sense at the time. I don't know why now, but so it made me think differently. It made me approach it differently. When it was 3:30 and I didn't have one, I was not panicked, but I was going to get a sale the next person I talked to, as opposed to somebody maybe that necessarily doesn't have that mindset and thinks, "Oh, it's still early. It's 3:30. I can still get one sometime." I was like, "Yeah, but I need to have my first one already and on to my second one." It's just a paradigm shift, a mindset thing, I think. The same thing with solar. With solar is a little different because, I had it set up where be in my area at 2 o'clock every day, and I'd have an alarm set at 1:30, and it would go off, and I was roughly 20 minutes from my area, go to area, and just get to work. And I get the question, well, what if you hadn't had lunch or whatever? Again, I try to take every decision out. So it's not like when the alarm goes off, I don't think, "Oh crap, have I eaten?" I just think, "Oh crap, alarm's off. I'm in my car, I'm going." Sometimes I'd eat and sometimes I wouldn't. But it wasn't like I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna not eat lunch today." It was, okay, I guess it just wasn't in the cards for today, which probably isn't a good thing. But
But you're so disciplined. It's alarm means I'm in work mode. Let's go.
That's right. Yeah, it wasn't time to decide if I should eat or do something else. It was because I just had done it every single. I've done this 12, 13 years, and I'm just now like I still come 2 o'clock, like you still get a little antsy. Like
You're like, why am I still in my house?
I'm telling you, like anytime during the summer, my guys would see me, and it's like I get weird after 2, And same when I was like full time on doors, which again I still not selling stuff, but when it was full time and it was 2 o'clock and I was in the office, like it just didn't happen.
So most solar reps, they fall victim to some traps, right? They don't have that alarm clock that seems to go off at 1:30 and say, let's get on the doors and let's go. What's the trap that most solar reps kind of fall into?
It's really easy to get complacent with solar. It's really good pay, and I think a lot of times guys feel like it's less work. So with solar, you don't have to be as good of a salesperson, in my opinion. You have to be a more disciplined person, however, because it's not as, and I'm just comparing this to my experience with the summer or whatever. I love both. Nothing but great things to say about home automation, what that taught me differently. It's just different. But a lot of times, what happens is they come over, they're making really good money, and they find that they can do it by maybe working a little bit less or driving to specific houses that they like and all this stuff. As a matter of fact, personally, I don't do a ton of referrals for solar because, in the area that I have always worked in, I have 180 installs in a neighborhood, and to go out and drive to this city to get this referral and then follow up with this and swing by my next visit to their house, like it just takes more time than it does to knock a fresh door, in my opinion. But I think people like the ease or the simplicity or the ease of the sale, so they'll risk volume to do it.
So, yeah, how do you, I mean, go a little bit more into depth on that, where I feel like people fall into this mindset of like, I'm going to take this, it's easier to make a few phone calls to, or maybe a follow up or try to go to an install because they already know me versus.
I don't even know if it's easier, but it's less vulnerable.
Yeah.
They don't have to get to the door and knock on the door in the face of possible rejection. I actually think that's easier. It's probably less work if we really think about it, but it's more. It requires more focus. Like the work is tougher in that regard. You can get behind a phone of a referral and call all day long and set up an appointment and go. And there's kind of not much. That doesn't take much brain power or emotional focus. But when you go to the doors, like you got to be all in. You got to be focused. You got to be overcome objections. And that's in my opinion the reason I think it's worth it is because I think that's if you can build up that pipeline and get customers that you're creating, I think you have an unlimited resource. And I think once you start depending on referrals, it depletes, So I think a good mix of both is the healthiest, obviously, and that's how you get the most volume.
So how do you, there's a lot of solar companies, my company included, that we do like kind of a setter closer program where then I found that these closers, they get into this mindset of like, oh, I'm just going to wait for an appointment and then I'll just go to that.
Sure.
What's your opinion on this whole setter closer thing?
I don't necessarily have an opinion on it because I haven't experienced it firsthand. I've seen it work really well in some places, but I would argue that could be a downside to it. Once you kind of, get fat and happy, it's easy to just only go to appointments and you lose kind of that hustle muscle a little bit, Again, if it's working, it's working. I'm just saying, there's a lot of variables with that stuff. I like knowing that I can go to a random neighborhood, knock a random door, and create business. Like that's the most value, in my opinion, in our entire industry. I think a lot of people can go to, takeovers or add-ons or whatever. Like a lot of people can do that, but the most value is being able to create new business from scratch.
100%. So what do you do to get focused? You said it requires a lot of focus. All it does is it requires more focus to do that. So what are some daily things that you do, maybe in the morning or at night, or what do you do to get focused?
That's a good question, man. I actually don't know if I can pinpoint that. I don't know if I can say I do this to get focused. I try to stay sharp, right? I mean, I'm always listening to a book or reading or whatever. Like I try to do that. I don't know if that keeps me focused on the doors. I think that focus just comes from experience. I mean, I was telling the story the other day, but when I first started, so I had my 10 preseason counts when I was doing my first year. And then when I first started, my first day out there, I started at 2 o'clock and I got an account finally. It was at 8:30, but it was at 8:30 and I was drained. I was beat up, like just, thinking to myself, like everyone thinks, should I really do this? We start, our emotions hijack our brains and we start to, rationalize with flawed rationale. And I was like, should I do this? Is it better to do something else? Should I do something else? And then the next day, the same thing happened, but I got it at 8:45. and it was just like brutal. I remember thinking, this is so much harder than I thought it was going to be. And if I could finish with 100, that's going to be a huge success. But then as I started going, I went through that, just kind of endured the pain and just the brutal rejections and know and how to cope. And, I was able to overcome it, obviously, and get through it. But I think it's just experience, man. I really
just
do.
time. Do you feel like a lot of people quit too early in this job?
Oh, yeah. I think in relating that story that I was just saying, so that first Saturday, I got 4 accounts, my first Saturday. And I think a lot of, oh, crazy, you got 4. That's like, what experienced guys do or whatever. But I actually just think I went through the pain either more so or quicker than a lot of the other first year reps who would be told no for a couple hours and go sit at the park and take a nap, and go to the gas station because they think they need more energy. And so it's actually a smarter move to be off the doors. Nobody can convince me to do anything more effective during that 2 to 9 time than putting your knuckles through the door.
How many?
Anything else that just isn't accurate.
Would you ever take breaks, go to a gas station? I mean,
never. And not that I'm saying I'm some diehard. It's just it wasn't in my system. Like
bathroom. What'd you do for bathroom?
I'd go in the customer's house, and the other one, my body was just ready for it, dude. I was just ready.
Okay, it's so funny that you haven't heard all the podcasts I've done yet because I haven't released a lot, but everyone has said the same thing. It's like their body literally knows you don't pee during this time. And then come 9:30, it's like, oh man, I gotta go. And that's when you go to the gas station.
And it's not that I didn't have to go, right? But I mean, it's again, I think we have more power over our bodies and functions than we let ourselves to believe. I just think that it's easy. It's so easy. And the thing that I always say is the problem with excuses is they're always legitimate. They're always legitimate. Like, it's not bad to go to the bathroom. That's the creative.
It's funny that we're talking about this, but you're right. It's like, oh, I should feel bad. I'm going to the bathroom. Like Jordan Williams said, don't go to the bathroom.
Bad to go to the bathroom. I'm talking about me personally, first off, but it wasn't part of it. I didn't have time to take 30 minutes. I had an hour and 45-minute increment to get an account every hour and 45 minutes, and I didn't have time to take 30 minutes to figure out a gas station thing. It just wasn't part of it. So I just didn't have to. I actually would argue it was easier to do what I did. It's easier to not make a decision every 15 minutes. Am I going to do this? Am I going to work? Am I not? Am I going to go here? It's like, you just go.
You just go. No, I 100% agree. Okay, let's go into your sales. So a lot of people are going to ask, like, what makes a good salesman? What makes a good door-to-door guy? So let's just start with the door approach. Obviously, you kind of have a flow to your door approach. What do you feel like is most important at the beginning?
Most important thing is just breaking preoccupation. I've said that I don't think anybody's pitch necessarily is better than the other. I mean, there's the basic stuff, tone, and, obviously you got a problem, solution, transition, like we talked about earlier, and you have the right tone, and it's got to be give them some information, ask a question. A lot of these little things, which, we can go into that, but the biggest thing, in my opinion, is just getting people to listen to you.
So what are 1 or 2, 3 go-tos that you do to break somebody's preoccupation?
Nothing crazy, just, hey, what's going on with the homeowner? Yeah, is this a so-and-so residence? Okay, has anyone told you what's going on? Just that even. Because I think if you talk to a new rep, out of 10 people, they're probably going to get, 1 to listen to them, because it's, hey, sir, how you doing? My name's so-and-so, and I'm with so-and-so, and they just shut off. But if you talk to a really experienced rep that does really well, they get 9 out of 10 people to listen to them. I mean, that's the difference. And then the pitch is whatever.
Do you ever do any weird things that you kind of do to throw people off guard? Do you have any like fun story? You're by the buck.
I'm actually probably like the least gimmicky person you'll know. Like, I'm pretty matter of fact, straight to. Like, I don't do anything weird or crazy or nothing like that.
It's been interesting because you interviewing different people, you'll see some people are like just the grinder, like boom, like let me break your preoccupation straight up. Some people are like, let me try something creative, and like but everybody's got a different style. And
that's right. Yeah, it works for different people. Like, and I think personalities have something to do with that, obviously. And if it works, it works.
Cool. Okay, let's go into closing. Do you have any favorite close that you're just like, it worked for me in alarms, it worked for me in solar, this is my go-to, I love these?
I'm just super assumptive. I mean, everything that I do is the assumptive close. I just, I always talk about this, but I think that a good salesperson, there's never really like a close, right? So everything that we do, I think we're trying to set up. The example that I give is if I were to tell you and 5 other people to text me tonight when it gets dark, I'd get a text at a different time from each one of you. It never like gets dark. It just kind of becomes dark. So, I think it's the same thing with selling. I don't think anyone ever like gets closed necessarily, unless you set up like that and it can work. But I think to sell a higher volume of people, they can never really. I mean, they just become closed. You don't give them a certain close.
It's not like gotcha.
Yeah, it's like the second you try to draw the line in the sand and have them take the step, you're going to lose people. But if you can kind of blur that out and run your foot through it so there's no real line and they're just kind of next to you at the end of it, then that's the close. But so yeah, everything is just super assumptive.
So it's just like we're moving forward. What's your email? How do we, who do you want it to call? What day do you want it to come for site survey? Just
right, whatever it is. Yep, that's right. So yeah, you guys will be here hopping up on these roofs. I'll let you know, the next available slot is, and we'll throw you in that slot. Like it's just, it's happening.
Cool. And what happens when a customer says no? Like you're going assumptive, you're on this like boom, 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 we're moving, and all of a sudden the customer's like, dude, I don't want to do this. Like, let me think about it. Like, what's going through your mind?
I always try to push really hard without being pushy. And my demeanor is always, oh yeah, look, if this works, great. If not, that's fine. I'm always like stand back, but my words and vocabulary and everything that I'm doing is moving forward. So, if they tell me no, I just look for clarification, kind of like, well, no, we're not doing this yet. That's absolutely fine. No one's expecting you to do anything yet. We actually need to, cross a couple T's and dot a couple I's before we can do anything either. You need to do your homework for the week. That's all we're doing here, right? That's probably different with Solar than some other sales. I think you can.
But it's still the same principle of, let me pull back and alleviate the pressure, and then let's keep moving.
I think if you can't do that, you're going to get into what I call begging for the sale. And the second you start to beg and say, oh, I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll make it sweeter and I'll do this, that just gets people more like weirded out. It's like, this guy obviously doesn't do this that much, or like, why is he trying to give me the farm on this? For me, I think it's counterintuitive, but it's the exact opposite. The second they say I don't want to do it, you pull back so hard, right? That's fine. We're still seeing if it's even a possibility. We don't know if we can do it either. If this works, great. If not, that's totally fine. It doesn't make a difference to me whether or not we do this here at a different house. That's great. That's for you. That's for you and your family to kind of decide. But I always pull back super hard. And then after that, I go right into why they should do it. Obviously.
Perfect. No, that's a nugget. Everyone that is listening to this should write that down and take that to heart, because if they don't do it, they're not going to sell near the volumes they potentially could, right?
Right.
Okay, so let's move into how you work an area. You have 180 installs in one area. Why just one area? How do you work it?
With Solar, again, it's a little bit different. I think I sell a higher percentage of people. I never really get told no. I always try to end it before there's a no, because I'll be there for a while and I can probably catch them later. I've installed a couple of their neighbors. And then I just don't think you're doing as much locking necessarily. So the areas, it probably lasts a little bit longer. But I think if you can, I always say that you're always increasing or decreasing your percentage of getting an account in the second you step out the door. Starting with prospecting, right? If you're going just door to door to door to door to door, you're hurting your chances of getting a sale. Even if that means there's one person that sees you on the street and they look out the window and they see you going door to door to door to door, like you're aiming and knocking, that doesn't help you when you go talk to this person. I would rather be somebody that's here and there and going here and there and back, and they see you in the house and back out, and then go to their house and be like, man, sorry, I've tried to catch you. And they're like, what are you doing? Even that increases your odds of getting an account. So for me, I'm always thinking through that, right? So it starts from when I sorry, get a phone call.
You're good.
Hey, can I send a text really quick? Is that cool?
You can send a text.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Okay, you're good.
So, for me, yeah, I mean, area is important. I always try to stay put. I think the more you know about an area, the more credible you are, and it starts to work in your favor. People start to see you. They start to know you. This person that lives on this end of your area happens to know this person on this end of your area. And once you see their kids are the same age, you can say it. And going to baseball practice, you can say, "Oh, do you know them? Yeah, they're someplace baseball. Talk about your kid's age." And they're like, "How in the world does this door-to-door guy know all this stuff?" So I think the longer you can be somewhere, the more advantageous it is for you. But I always try to stay put.
Cool. Okay, so I want to move on to what we call the lightning round. And then at the end, I'm going to ask one piece of advice you'd give the door-to-door industry in and of itself. If you could give the one nugget, like your favorite thing to train on, I want you to be thinking of that. So these are just quick answers, move through them fast, and they're kind of fun. So what makes you a successful salesman?
Relentlessness.
Cool.
Like I said, play the good habits.
A book that changed your life.
Ooh, As a Man Thinketh.
Craziest thing that happened to you on the doors. Funniest, craziest.
This might maybe a little inappropriate, but I once sold an elderly lady, her and her husband, and she didn't have pants on the entire time, even through install. She sat in a chair because
And husband?
husband was there. He was fully clothed, brings me in the house, go into the kitchen, says, "Roger," and sits down because she didn't have pants on, and sat there through the install.
And just didn't say like, "Oh, let me go put some pants on." That's awesome.
Wait for it.
Okay.
Yeah,
What skill should every salesman have?
Ooh. Confidence, and I call that a skill because it has to do with your tone and how you make your statements. I think one thing quick, this isn't lightning, but
No, it's fine. We can go on tangent.
the phrase "fake it till you make it," I actually think it's a hard one for me to kind of internalize, but I think in our industry, when you're trying to fake confidence till you make it, you don't have confidence when you get told no a lot. So what usually happens, your tone ends up going up, right? So I'm with Vivint, or I'm with whoever, instead of I'm with Vivint. And the latter obviously is more confident. So as you correct your tone, you will have more success, and you literally fake it until you make it, and then you start. It's kind of a cyclical process. But
that's cool.
What,
what makes you happy?
My family, golf, work, love it.
I'm coming to Cali in a couple weeks. Let's go golf.
Go.
Man.
Do it.
What do you? One word describes success.
Consistency.
What does it take to be? It's kind of the same thing. Favorite cereal?
Ooh, favorite cereal. I mean, if I'm talking like real favorite cereal.
Yeah, like real, like you're not on a diet favorite cereal.
Not like Raisin Bran Crunch. That doesn't count.
That doesn't count.
So when I was a kid, we grew up with the 3-pack of Lucky Charms, Cocoa Puffs, and Fruit Loops. Those are probably up there.
But which one of those three would you take first, and Tyler would get mad at you because he took it?
I'd probably say Lucky Charms.
Go to. Love it. If you weren't a salesman, let's say I don't know, you couldn't sell, what would you do?
Probably something in the finance world. I like numbers. I'm a numbers guy.
What gets you fired up when you're not feeling it? Like you're having one of those days. What do? What gets you stoked?
What gets me stoked? Genuinely, like I love helping people. Like I think for me, it gets me happy when I stop thinking about myself. Really, so I try to find ways to think of someone else.
Cool.
Helps me there's more to stuff, more life.
Who are one or two mentors that you've looked up throughout this industry that you've kind of always aspired and respected?
I mean, my brother's been with me through like the whole thing. He got me introduced to it. I learned a lot from him. Like I said earlier, I continue to learn a lot from him. He's super talented.
It could be outside of work. It could be inside of this.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably cliche. Like my parents, I learned a ton from my parents. I I think the reason that I can do what I can do is because I grew up with, my dad was a crazy hard worker. My mom probably outworked him. Just the way of thinking, setting goals, hitting goals, mindset, that kind of came from my dad.
Do you have any other brothers and sisters other than Tyler?
Yeah, I have an older brother who actually sells with Vivint Inc. And then we have a younger sister.
I'm sure they're proud parents.
Yeah.
Do you ever get really competitive with Tyler? Do you think that's also sparked your success a little bit?
Actually, this might surprise you. I'm actually not a crazy competitive person. And specifically with Ty, I don't get competitive with Ty. Maybe he gets competitive with me. I don't know. But like my first year, I always wanted him to do better. Like I wanted him to, have a good year. I don't want to come in and do better, and he did. He smoked me. But no, I'm not crazy competitive. I again, it's not like I played sports and obviously growing up, and I like to win. I'm not saying I don't, but I don't like my value isn't tied to being first. As long as I'm hitting my goals and numbers and I'm doing, I think there's more confidence comes to me when I do what I tell myself I'm going to do, rather than being in a position, even if I told myself I was going to do something, I didn't do it. There's more value to that for me, in just being able to do what I tell myself I'm going to do.
Yeah, no, I like that. Okay, so if you were to give the door-to-door space one piece of advice, what would it be?
I've obviously talked about it a couple times, so it must mean something, but become a slave to good habits. That's it. It's time is the key, and don't let your emotion hijack your brain, because you always make bad decisions when you do.
Cool. I like that. So super grateful for you, Jordan. I've learned a ton. Like I actually feel like honored to actually do this podcast. And I'm assuming a lot of people will take a lot out of this. So I appreciate your time.
Man.
Yeah, and I hope to see you in November at our year-end party. We're doing a year-end door-to-door con, the first ever thrown. So I definitely want to invite you. But we're just inviting pretty much everybody that's in the door-to-door space, and there's going to be a lot of signs that say no recruiting. Like, I don't want it to be this thing. I just want it to be, hey, everybody comes. We learn from the greatest out there, and we'll go from there and just see what comes of it. So, super excited. Yeah. Okay, so appreciate your time, Jordan. Thanks for tuning in. Can't knock this.
Appreciate having me on.
Okay, we'll see ya. You still there?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.